Hey, my name is Thomas Avery Garran, and I am an herbalist, Chinese medicine doctor, or doctor of Chinese medicine, um, who lived in China for 16 years. And these books are part of my Chinese medicine collection, um, which consists of over 1,000 titles in Chinese these days, which is really kind of cool. Um, I'm also the executive director and owner of the East-West School of Herbology, formerly run and owned and run by the Tierras. It's one of the oldest herb schools in the country, I guess.
Wow. So what
Yeah,
what year was
started
it
started in
established?
1980.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's been around a long time. Um, and I run Herb Whisperer, which includes the school and the farm that we have here. We have a certified organic farm. We grow Western and Chinese herbs. And that brings me to why I'm here, really, because myself and my colleague Margaret Bloomquist are going to be discussing growing Chinese herbs in North America. Margaret works at North Carolina State University, and I've been working with her and her boss, or whatever we want to call her, Janine Davis, who's, I think, pretty well known in the field for not just growing Chinese herbs, but regionally for lots of cool agriculture stuff she's been doing there at the extension for a very long time, right?
No.
So I'm pretty honored to be able to work with them. We kind of restarted their Chinese herb program that they've been doing for quite some time, previously with our dear departed friend Joe Hollis. Um, so, you know, I started working with them in no, excuse me, 2019, I think, 2019, I think. So it's been 6 years now, and we have some interesting information that we're excited to share with you. Um, and it's kind of taking the stuff that I wrote about in the book that I translated, about growing Chinese herbs, and sort of, but that's about growing Chinese herbs in China. So we basically have taken that and sort of taken the next step and used this base of information plus everything that they had learned in the past, and sort of implementing that. So we have a little bit of data finally to share, and it's kind of exciting. So yeah, that's a big part of what this is going to be about. Yeah.
And obviously China's a massive country and has a lot of different growing environments,
Right.
but there are a lot of similarities, right, with the Appalachian region and parts of China, and
Right.
a lot of plants that are similar yet different, like ginseng,
Right. Yeah.
and
So there's
and
these
and then
disjunct
there's and then
species.
and then there's also, I guess, an abundance of maybe plants that they use medicinally that we don't use medicinally. And right? So there's
Yeah,
lots
there's
of
that for sure.
interesting correlations.
Right.
Um
I mean,
and
the majority of the herbs that we use in Chinese medicine, certainly not all, but the majority, grow in regions with ecosystems that are very similar to basically east of the Mississippi in North America. So the vast majority of the herbs um, from the Chinese Materia Medica grow or can be grown very quite well in those ecosystems. Far fewer, like a very small number, west of the Mississippi, and certainly, um, I mean, there isn't any kind of like Mediterranean um, ecosystem in China. So unfortunately, California, which is such a wonderfully abundant agricultural state, is not ideal for the vast majority of Chinese herbs. Or I wouldn't say none, but it's kind of a hard fit if we think about So one of the things that's very important in Chinese medicine, and I think also important when you grow herbs anywhere, and certainly grape growers around the world have noticed this. We have terroir in the grape growing world. And in Chinese medicine, we have called Dao Di, which is like sometimes translated as geo-authentic, which is not entirely accurate because it's not exactly just about the place. But my teacher would say it's about the combination of genetics, the environment, and human interaction, right? So something
Mm,
ethnobotanists would be very curious about, right?
yeah.
Um,
A
and
little
having,
triangulation. A little
yeah,
triangulation of,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I love that, right? So the place, how humans interact, and then also the genetics.
Right, right. So, um,
And all of
we,
those things work on different time scales.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, the thing that a lot of people I think don't recognize or realize is that the vast majority of Chinese herbs were not cultivated until relatively recently.
Hmm.
There's only a few with long cultivation histories.
Right. Yeah,
So
most of them were just wild harvested
right,
or
exactly. Or
interacted in that
managed.
level or
Yeah, I
managed.
mean, yeah, they were managed for sure. Um, replanting seeds and things like that, that definitely was happening.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
as far as like, field planting or whatever, that was pretty limited. There's some things. Um, uh, I mean, there's evidence that in the Tang Dynasty, so that's like about for 1500 years ago, whatever, they tried to grow ginseng in the very south of China. And there's this funny little passage where they say something like, well, it lived for a month and then the the miasms. It's like this concept of like diseases of the South or whatever took over and killed it or something like that. You're like, okay, what you really mean is that it's too hot and humid there,
Yeah.
and it
Wow.
comes from the very far northeast of China. Wouldn't work there. Um, so, yeah, so understanding this thing as far as like the ecology is concerned and understanding, this plant is best with this much rain and this kind of soil and so on and so forth, that's relatively easy for us to figure out. I mean, we have that information. Previously, it was only in Chinese, but now some of it is in English. And fortunately, I can read the Chinese so we can figure that out. If we can get the genetics, which I've been able to do in some cases, and understand what the human interaction is, which is also in the book and also stuff that I, have access to and was trained in when I did my graduate work in China. That allows us, I think, this whole new generation of growing Chinese herbs in North America that with a bunch of information and experience we didn't have before. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. It's just that I was lucky enough to land in a place that is like literally the epicenter for that research in the country.
Hmm.
So,
Which
I mean,
was where?
in Beijing
Beijing. Okay.
it's called the China Academy of Chinese Medical Sciences.
Mm.
And my advisor is the president of the academy, and one of the people on my committee, who's actually the person who is on some level more my advisor, actually. She literally wrote the ecology of Chinese herbs, like the textbook that's used in, as a textbook around the
Yeah.
country. So
Neat.
I just got I mean, I won't tell that story now, but I just can't got like it was one of those things where you just can't imagine you could be that lucky.
Yeah.
Where you just like this person literally sat next to me at a conference after she presented this thing, and I was like, "That's cool. I want to know more about that."
Right.
And then she sat down next to me, random, you know. So, yeah. So I just got lucky and sort of stepped into something that I didn't even not sure I fully understood when I stepped into it, what exactly I was stepping into, but it just turned out to be just a golden opportunity for me. Um, and I was able to do both the research and learn more about agriculture, but also by like a act of God, literally, if you want to call it that. My original research was flooded, and I had to after 2 years, and I had to like change gears or switch gears and ended up doing something that's more aligned with what I had doing before, which is like the Western herbs and Chinese medicine thing. So I ended up actually doing a whole my dissertation was a comparison of the European and the Chinese motherwort.
Mm.
So I did uh, historical stuff, I did chemistry, I did genetics. I didn't do much agriculture, but just didn't have time. So um, if you want to know anything about Leonoris,
You're the one, you're the person to talk
you
to.
might know a couple things about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
Well, I mean, I think it's an
yeah,
exciting time, right? I mean, it's an exciting time to kind of, um, I think th things have churned, trying to get the market and the growers to start producing Chinese herbs, but I think
right.
right now
Right.
we're
Well, so there's, I mean, this the current stuff that's going on with tariffs, and that's like a bit of a thing. I mean, one of the things I realized when I started looking into this more closely, right around the time I started working with Margaret and Janine, I met with a bunch of growers, some, like some failed experiments or whatever, and I realized that I every time a farmer asked me a question, all I could really say was, well, in China, blah 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 blah.
yeah,
Of course, as soon as you say in China, the eyes glaze over. They're like, "What about on my farm?"
yeah,
And I thought, like, "Oh, I can't tell you. I don't know how it's going to respond on your farm. I don't know what the pest issues are. I don't know what the disease
yeah.
issues. Like, what are those pressures? I don't know. Nobody knows."
Mm,
So that's kind of why I realized, like, step back and go, like, okay, the only way that we're really going to do this, because for the last 25 years, they've just like they proverbially these folks people have tried these different approaches, and they've gotten grant money, they've tried to do things, and without the research data there's been a lot of mistakes made,
mhm.
and most of that has sort of fallen a bit flat. I don't know if anybody is doing any kind of commercial production, maybe of one or two herbs, but nothing significant, you know
Yeah,
so so that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to like create data so that when I talk to a farmer, I can say, okay, so this is what happened here in this soil, and if it's folks in the Appalachia region, then we have great data for them. And now here I'm in Western Massachusetts, and we're establishing this place, so we have data from here as well. So, over the next few years, I'll start to have data coming off of this farm here.
yeah,
So hopefully, within a decade or so, we'll have, what I hope is sort of, around 50 herbs with reasonable data that anybody who's willing to take on an agricultural project will have, some reasonable footing to work from. So,
awesome.
yeah,
Well, I think it's great to have you come and teach, share your experience in China and what you're doing in Western Mass, and get people thinking about Chinese herbs,
yeah,
and then sharing about the history of the school and where you're taking it. So
right.
yeah,
I know it's a little bit out of what, this is supposed to be. It's like it's in Cincinnati, it's the eclectics, but the eclectics were rather eclectic.
they were absolutely.
And I think without hesitation I can say that any of those guys, whether it was Lloyd or any of those guys, if I had said, here's a cool plant, this is what it does, they
Yeah,
loved it. And they don't care
absolutely.
where it came from.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
So um yeah, so I think it's eclecticism as a sort of broader term, I'm all about.
Hmm.
Plants don't care about borders,
Yeah,
you know, only people, or only some people.
yeah.
And whatever works best is what we're looking for. And that's yeah. So
And I think the the there was a split when the eclectic schools died and the allopathic medical schools took over, and we really missed an opportunity to kind of see a marriage between those two worlds.
right.
Whereas I feel like maybe China has, had its own problems and troubles and, rocky history, but there's certainly still an acceptance of herbal medicine and
Oh,
acupuncture,
yeah, for sure.
and there's, more of uh, uh, an understanding of an acceptance of working together. And then, you've got India with their sort of rich history
Right,
and Ayurvedic, and um how they combine, those
right,
traditional medicines. And so my whole vision behind doing the eclectics as a theme for the international is to kind of bring back that history, and then
nice,
how do we chart our way forward? How do we take
right,
some of those values that the eclectics kind of laid a foundation for, which I think is
right.
why the natural products industry does so well. Even if people don't know who the eclectics were, they sort of laid that foundation for botanical medicine to be
Yeah, for
accepted
sure.
into our cultural cosmology. And
Right.
so and that's what I'm, hoping, in the vein of why Rosemary started the international, to get people to be open-minded to different cultural ideas. There's no one way, there's many ways. And so yeah, I think it's going to be super
I'm
unique.
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I was at, I think it was the second. I don't think I made the first one, but I think I was at the second international. And I've been to several over the
Yeah.
years. I've taught a couple once or twice. And so I'm looking forward. And I've never been to the Eclectic Museum Institute
Oh,
down
right.
there.
Oh
So
yeah, the
that's
Lloyd
pretty
Library. Yeah.
right. So that's kind of cool. And I've never been to the sanctuary, which is not far from there, right? And
Right.
so they
And
don't,
I'm sure, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of, information that they don't even know how to interpret in that library
I'm
that you
sure,
may.
for sure, for sure. And I can tell you that in China, um, you know, the Western medicine or modern medicine, whatever you want to call it, and traditional medicine, Chinese medicine, it is married pretty well in most situations. There are definitely still like both sides who people on both sides are like, no, that stuff is bad or whatever.
Right.
But mostly, I mean, there's whole hospitals where it's all about integrative medicine.
Yeah.
Literally, doctors of both Chinese medicine and Western medicine working side by side,
Yeah.
sending
Yeah.
patients back and forth, like in
Right.
big hospitals. We're not talking about little clinics, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that if there's a way we can move toward that, the population would be better off for it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if there's a way I can do that, and I'm looking forward. I just took um, a position. I didn't mention this before, but at Mass College of Pharmacy as
Mm.
an adjunct. So I'll be doing some teaching and some curriculum development for them to connect the College of Pharmacy with the Chinese Medicine School because they bought um, New England College of Acupuncture, it's called, or
Oh,
New England School of Acupuncture or something, NISA,
nice.
about 10 years ago. So they don't just do acupuncture, they also do herbs there. And so because of my background, I have this sort of, I wouldn't call it unique, but definitely there's not many of us that can, that are trained in the sciences and in the traditional stuff. And so it's going to be kind of fun to marry those. And that's a great step. And I think that they have vision. They see that this is a great thing. They see it's an important
Yeah.
thing. And teaching
Yeah, I
pharmacists.
think people are frustrated with the healthcare system, and there's a lot
Yeah,
of innovation right now.
right. Yeah,
These startups are all over the place, right? Trying to help people navigate the healthcare system in a way
right.
that's more tailored to their needs and can provide guidance on nutrition and wellness. So
Right.
it's,
And I think they've recognized that their pharmacists need to know what this stuff is because
yeah,
people are
because the
asking
people are
about it
getting
all
right,
the time.
yeah, right. Can I take
Right.
this with this? And they want answers.
Right. And they have no training and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't
Yeah, right. So they just
know.
say, don't do it because
That's
that's
right. That's
the
what they
safest
say. They
thing.
say they just don't do it because they don't know. And that's
Yeah,
fair. Like sometimes nobody knows, right? But at least they have some information, some background. So that's
yeah.
kind of yeah, exciting. We're all
Yeah,
moving
I think
forward.
so. Yeah, well, awesome. Happy to have you come and look forward to connecting in person in Cincinnati and having you come to the sanctuary. And
I'm looking forward to that too.
yeah,
And well, I want to thank you very much for having me for this little chat. It's been good to catch up,
Yep.
and I want to invite everyone who watches this to come to the symposium because I think it's going to be great. I'm sure it's going to be great.
Yeah.
I've never done anything that Susan's been a part of that hasn't been fantastic. So
Thank you.
it's true. I'm not. I'm just.
Okay, okay, okay.
That's
I'll
not
take it. I'll
hyperbole.
take
That's
it.
true. That's true. And frankly, like it's in kind of a historical seat of herbal medicine in the
Yeah,
country,
yeah.
right? And so I think that that's also a very important thing. And I think it's
Hmm.
we need to make sure that we're stay connected to our roots,
Yeah.
you know.
I haven't shared this, but I will at the conference. I've been doing some research on Memorial Hall, and um I recently found out that the School of Eclectic Medicine held their graduation ceremonies in Memorial Hall.
Oh, wow.
So we'll be like stepping into a place where actually people received their degrees to
Wow.
be a medical
Okay.
doctor in the eclectic tradition. So I don't know. I feel like that there's a lot of synergy there, right? Like
Yeah.
we'll be like, you know, within their ghostly presence.
I like it. No, that's great. I think
Yeah.
we should do a little like
Yeah, a little seance ceremony.
yeah,
Yeah.
see if we can come up with some incantation and bring in the
Yeah.
spirits of some of those folks. That would be kind of cool. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, it's gonna get
So
out
any of
there.
you out there know how to do
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that.
Yeah, hit me up. Hit me up. Okay, great. Well, to
Okay.
be continued in Cincinnati. Thank so much.
Thank you so much.